they're almost like a peek into a sketchbook. And if you start looking, because so much of my work is about process in mark making, and you'll see what's happening maybe right here in this piece, and then you can look over and see something similar into this. So these are smaller scale pieces that I'm distilling color, distilling the shape, and the line quality. You'll see in a couple of the other works, I'll have female forms, and I'm attempting to deconstruct the female form to a simplified figure. So it's really about the line quality. I consider myself an abstract painter, but we will have recognizable shapes that are simplified, organic in its nature. So right here is a larger work on paper. This is a new piece for me. It was really fun experimenting with working on the paper in that size for the show. As we come down here next to the gentleman in yellow, so the title of this piece is called Her Words, which is also inspired by the title of the show. So I'm building up the layers of the paint, so I'm using acrylic and charcoal and graphite, inks and oils on the canvas. I'll work flat on the wall, unstretched but stapled, and then working on many layers like that, then I'll bring it directly to the floor and work on top of it, and then I'll return it back to the wall to complete the process of the painting.
So can I ask a question?
Absolutely, come in.
Some of the colors are so bright and bold, and some are much more muted. It's kind of a contrast. Did you do that on purpose?
I did.
What does that mean?
Well, it's just kind of that juxtaposition and the contradiction. If you look right behind you, in this top right piece,
Sure.
you'll see also the pastel light hues with the super intense color.
Like that.
So if we want to come to the front.
I think this might be my favorite. This is a wow piece.
So this piece, the title is Love Born of Fire Unfolding. And this piece was also created in the collection for the museum exhibition. And I'm so happy that I was able to pull this piece and display it in this exhibition. And it really became the anchor for the rest of the show, and the idea of the myth, the word, and the fire, the idea of the transformation. This was a very special piece. I was so thrilled when I showed Leslie, and she was like, "Yes, we have wall space to install it."
How long does it take to create something like that? Probably different times for different paintings, but...
Absolutely. So I'll work on multiple pieces at one time.
Oh, really?
And then you'll see sometimes they're upside down, they're sideways. So sometimes also you'll see how different paintings carry over to other paintings. All the works are individual, of course, but there's a continuity of the line that stretches across multiple planes.
Okay.
Question. I'm interested in your, as you look at a lot of the works, there's a lot of mark making going on. And I'm particularly interested in your approach to all these gestural markings that you're making. But one thing I admire more than anything when you look at the work is that you feel these moments where you applied a little bit of pressure at some points. Where you're just like, I'm interested in what's happening in this particular place, but also it's a little bit lighter, calmer here. But as you arrive at this point, like you're taking them on this kind of journey. So Yeah, just like mark making and like
Mhm.
be able to approach them.
Yeah, just like the lines there, you know, what moves you to go to that after this?
I would say part of that is intuition. So, as it's that intuition and that flow. So I love the push and pull of the contradiction, that conceptual aspect of breaking it down between the simplified mark of a graphite, of the pencil, right? So graphite is a pencil. It is just a line. And next to these large colored fields, and it's somewhat startling. So that would be my intent. And the energy in some of the marks to answer your question. So a long time ago, I used to paint on wooden supports, so wooden canvases, because I really liked how you could get into the painting. So you could carve into it, you could build up the layers, you could scratch it back, you could really create a lot of energy on the surface. I then slowly made the transition to the canvas. I was changing, my work was changing, so when canvas is stretched, it is more precious, right? So when I work directly onto the wall and it's stretched, stapled without it being on the square support, you can do anything. You can do anything to it. Yes, thank you. Excellent question.
I'm curious, just to piggyback kind of off of his question about especially a piece like this, but just knowing your work in general, negative space, right? You seem to have a grasp and like a control with the negative space and the areas that you really go in on. How do you make that decision? Is it just like, I mean, your work feels like a meditation to me. So, or is it just like a dance almost? Or, because like whole swath of this painting is so lightly covered.
Correct. So, I think of the negative space sometimes as a positive space. So you're playing that push and pull with the figure ground. So at times it's easier to digest when there's the abstracted figure. So either there's the color around and you're choosing what to paint in or what to remove. When it's abstracted, you still have the negative space, but to me, it is part of the picture plane, so it's not secondary, it's just as important as the larger swaths of color. So, it's also very intentional, this painting. It's extremely asymmetrical, it's extremely
contradictory?
It is.
That's what I see, a
off
contradiction.
Off balance,
Yeah.
right? And then hoping to still have.
There's still a harmony in that. Yeah.
But it's like the calm before the storm,
Right.
or
The
calm
roar of fire
that
unfolding,
right.
right?
Okay, that's what I see.
So much of the work is about that idea of
Or an
transformation.
explosion of feeling or emotion.
But I love that comment, it's just as important.
It
That
is.
is-
To me,
That's
you know,
important.
so some people may look at some of the works. There's a piece right behind us, and that too has a lot of, let's call it, negative space.
It's a
But
bad
it's
connotation.
not.
That's
Right,
not the right
so
word.
it's
How about
it's
neutral space?
Neutral.
Yeah.
It's a figure in ground.
Okay.
So then it starts to push and pull. So what then becomes the figure, and then what becomes the ground? So by no means, are my paintings about an optical illusion or anything like that, but they do start to reverberate in a way that you start to see the colors receding and the negative spaces come out. Years ago, I worked on an installation, and it was all about the missing women of Los Angeles County. So I was researching the women that had gone missing, and I had done all of these portraits, and they were drawn portraits with charcoal on black paper. So the actual figure, and the reference was from a photograph that the family provided to the Department of Justice. So these are the actual images of the missing women. So the portraits were drawn on black paper with black charcoal. I installed them in the room, hundreds and hundreds of drawings, and similar to the figure ground, sometimes it was just the solid black pieces of paper. There were only like 12 by 16 you could see. And then sometimes there was a ghostly hint of a face of a woman. So that idea of the push and pull of the figure ground has been in the work for a long time.
How do you, looking at some of the work, you feel like the figures start to come up and out? How do you pick and choose when you allow the figure to make an entrance, or either be visible, or just like, like stagnant in the actual plane of the work?
Sometimes that's just working. Sometimes it just comes, it's kind of, sometimes that feeling of like a ghost, right? You kind of barely see it, and sometimes it drifts by. Sometimes it's just that sense of a spirit or a hint from the corner of your eye, and then it just kind of starts to evolve.
Starts to evolve. On cue.